Radon gas.
You got it. Your choice alpha radiation is right.
Co is dash.
Strong choice. A base is the right answer.
Name the X.
Correct response. Helium nucleus is the most accurate answer. Acid's taste. You're right. Sour is the correct answer.
Most center.
Great thinking. Gamma is the right choice.
No 3 is a.
Great job. Acid is the accurate answer. Half-life is. Sharp thinking. Radioactive decay is the right choice.
Is a.
Nicely done. Weak acid is a solid answer. Tastes bitter. On track. Bases is the correct answer.
Dash equal to charge.
Perfect. Negative is the correct choice.
Dash equal to plus charge.
Smart move. Positive is an accurate answer.
Miss V is equal to. You chose 15,000 of a sievert, and it is correct. TL-432 he plus. Well picked 26A2PB is the correct answer. Beta decay carbon.
Right again. Nitrogen is a valid answer.
Gamma radiation is.
Good thinking. High energy electromagnetic radiation is the right answer. What is the symbol? Well reasoned. B is the correct choice.
Sodium beta emission.
Correct. Magnesium is the right answer.
The more H plus ions, the.
Nice selection. Stronger the acid is the correct and valid answer.
Loss of proton causes.
Valid point. Transmutation is true. Fast-moving electrons. Exactly. Beta radiation makes sense, and it is right choice.
Beta emission bromine.
Right choice. Krypton is the best answer.
And alpha radiation is.
Solid response. A helium nucleus is a valid choice.
Marie Curie discovered.
Good job. Your answer radioactivity works well here.
Which item is an acid? Well done.
And orange is the right choice.
Mass must be conserved.
Nice work. You chose 14 and it is correct.
The center of an atom.
Smart pick. Nucleus is the correct choice.
Which is the smallest?
Excellent choice. Electron is the right answer.
The H in stands for? Clear logic.
Your choice hydrogen is sound and 100% true.
Exposure to gamma rays.
Excellent. Irradiation is a brilliant choice.
What does F stand for? Bravo.
Potential hydrogen is the answer.
What is the name of N2O3?
Great job. Dinitrogen trioxide is the accurate answer.
What is the Fitch of water?
Excellent choice. 7 is the right answer.
What is a beta particle?
Smart move. Electron is an accurate answer.
Radiation can cause what?
Sharp thinking. Cancer is the right choice. Alpha particles have dash.
Great thinking. Positive charge is the right choice. What stops beta radiation? Nice work. You chose aluminium 3 mm or thicker, and it is correct. Electromagnetic radiation? Right again. Gamma is a valid answer. Oxide ion has a valency of? Well done. 2 is the right choice. The nucleus of an atom has? Perfect. Proton and neutron is the correct choice. Radiation is emitted from? Nice selection. Unstable atoms is the correct and valid answer. How many weeks in 3 years? Right choice. 156 is the best answer. An atom's overall charge is? Well picked. Neutral is the correct answer. A use for radioactivity is? Strong choice. A radiating food is the right answer. This is an example of dash. On track. Fission reaction is the correct answer. Which is an alpha particle? Exactly. For 2 He nuclei makes sense, and it is right choice. Where are protons located? Valid point. Nucleus is true. Which is the stronger acid? Bravo! Cleach 1 is the answer. Which particle is a hadron? Excellent. D proton is a brilliant choice. Isotopes have the same dash? Solid response. Number of electrons is a valid choice. What type of wave is light? Correct response. Transverse is the most accurate answer. Which is the most ionizing? Well reasoned. Alpha is the correct choice. Changes matter into energy. Clear logic. Your choice both is sound and 100% true. How do you detect radiation? Good job. Your answer Geiger counter works well here. What element is radioactive? You got it? Your choice technetium is right. Fusion produces dash nuclei. Smart pick. Larger is the correct choice. Hydrogen is the primary fuel. Nicely done. Fusion is a solid answer. The unit of absorbed dose is? You're right, rad is the correct answer. Background radiation is dash. You chose 70-95% natural, and it is correct. Dash have a positive charge? Correct. Alpha particles is the right answer. Isotopes have different dash. Good thinking. All of these is the right answer. Who discovered radioactivity? Right choice. Marie Curie is the best answer. H3P4 is an example of a dash. Sharp thinking. Acid is the right choice. Name the 2 daughter nuclei. You chose xenon and strontium, and it is correct. Which planet is the smallest? You're right. Mercury is the correct answer. A beta- particle is dash. Correct response. An electron is the most accurate answer. Which element is not a metal? Good thinking. Hydrogen watch is the right answer. How many protons are in N14? Well reasoned. 7 is the correct choice. The mass of a positron is dash.
Smart move 2005 is an accurate answer. Gamma rays have a dash charge.
Well picked. Zoe is the correct answer.
What did we use to test the Phi?
Excellent. Litmus paper is a brilliant choice.
Gamma radiation will emit dash. Well done. Gamma ray is the right choice.
Where should the first dot go?
Nice work. You chose 20 and it is correct. An electron has a dash charge. On track, negative is the correct answer. The center of an atom is called. Good job. Your answer, the nucleus, works well here. Group 1 elements are called the solid response. Alkali metals is a valid choice. The nuclei of 2 atoms combines.
Bravo! Fusion is the answer.
Made of 2 protons and 2 neutrons? Strong choice. Alpha is the right answer. What is the charge on beta rays? Great thinking. Negative is the right choice. Nuclear power uses dash for fuel.
Right again. Uranium is a valid answer.
Which is not a type of radiation. Exactly. Delta makes sense and it is right choice. What does this picture represent? Clear logic. Your choice, radioactive decay, is sound and 100% true. A sheet of paper stops almost all. Valid point. Alpha rays is true. What is the official name for tau? Nicely done. Dihydrogen monoxide is a solid answer. The number of protons in an atom. Correct. Atomic number is the right answer. A solution with a pH of 7 is dash. Great job. Neutral is the accurate answer. Found in orbits around the nucleus. Nice selection. Electrons is the correct and valid answer. Where does fusion occur naturally? You got it. Your choice on the sun is right. Which type of radiation is a wave? Perfect. Gamma is the correct choice. What can beta particles penetrate? Smart pick. 3 mem of aluminum is the correct choice. Exposure from radiation can cause? Excellent choice. All of the above is the right answer. How many electrons does neon have? Nice work. You chose 10 and it is correct. Beta particles have a dash charge. Good job. Your answer 1 works well here. What does the 4 in He4 represent? Excellent choice. The mass number is the right answer. What type of substance is the air? Exactly. Mixture makes sense and it is right choice. Substance that dissolves the solute. Right choice. Solvent is the best answer. Which is not particulate radiation. Nice selection. Gamma ray is the correct and valid answer. What is the half-life of carbon-14? Correct. 7 to 30 years is the right answer. Dash travels at the speed of light. Strong choice. Electromagnetic is the right answer. Stopped by 20-30 centimeters of air. You chose beta? And it is correct. What are the abscesses of radioactivity? Sharp thinking. Alpha, beta, gamma is the right choice. The weakest radioactive emission is. Great job. Alpha is the accurate answer. What can gamma radiation penetrate? Smart move. Several centimeters of lead is an accurate answer. The last non-radioactive element is. You're right. Bi is the correct answer.
Ongoing series of fission reactions.
On track. Chain reaction is the correct answer, which is blocked by thin aluminium. Right again. Beta is a valid answer. Beta decay involves the emission of. Solid response. An electron is a valid choice. How many carbon atoms are in ethane? Well picked. 2 is the correct answer.
U-238 are examples of dash.
Correct response. Isotopes is the most accurate answer. What is the chemical formula for CP? Bravo. Carbon monophosphide is the answer. What charge does each particle have? Well done. Electron negative, a proton positive, a neutron, no charge is the right choice, which is used in radioactive dating. Perfect. Carbon-14 is the correct choice.
Which radiation has negative charge?
Valid point. Beta particle is true. How many protons does nitrogen have? Smart pick. 7 is the correct choice. What is the half-life of radium-226? Clear logic? Your choice, 1/600 years, is sound and 100% true. What is at the center of every atom? You got it. Your choice, a nucleus, is right.
The least ionizing nuclear radiation.
Good thinking. Gamma is the right answer. Dash are used to treat brain tumors. Great thinking. Gamma rays is the right choice. The atomic number of a beta radiation. Excellent. 1 is a brilliant choice. What is an alpha particle made up of? Nicely done. Protons and neutrons is a solid answer. What is the charge of a chloride ion? Well reasoned. 1 is the correct choice. Which type of radiation is uncharged? Excellent choice. Gamma is the right answer. What is the negative part of an atom? Clear logic. Your choice, electron, is sound and 100% true. An isotope that undergoes B decay has. You chose too many neutrons. And it is correct. Which radiation is the most ionizing? Nicely done. Alpha is a solid answer. You can stop beta radiation with dash. Correct. Foil is the right answer. The 3 types of radiation are dash. Solid response. Alpha, beta, and gamma is a valid choice. A term used for combining of nucleus. On track. Fusion is the correct answer. Dash are bonded together to form dash. Smart pick. Atoms, molecules is the correct choice. How many types of radiation are there? Bravo, 3 is the answer. Which letter represents the amplitude? You got it. Your choice alpha is right. The charge of an beta particle is dash. Perfect. 1 is the correct choice. What is the half-life of this element? Good thinking. 2 days is the right answer. The atom stores the energy in the dash. Right choice. Nucleus is the best answer. What is the mass of an alpha particle? Strong choice. 4 is the right answer. Only energy amount changes during dash. Right again. Gamma decay is a valid answer.
What type of radiation is a gamma ray?
Well reasoned. Electromagnetic radiation is the correct choice. Which element is not radioactive waste? Well done. Holmium is the right choice. How many radioactive atoms are in the correct response? 4 is the most accurate answer. What is emitted during beta radiation? Exactly. A high-energy electron makes sense, and it is right choice. Which of the following stops neutrons? Excellent. Water is a brilliant choice. Lead can block which type of radiation? Smart move. Alpha and beta is an accurate answer. What is the charge of a gamma particle? Sharp thinking. Zo is the right choice. Which equipment measures radioactivity? Well picked. Giga-Muller tube is the correct answer. Which charge does a beta particle have? Great thinking. Negative is the right choice. What do you call the center of an atom? Nice work. You chose nucleus, and it is correct. What type of energy is movement energy? Valid point. Kinetic is true. What is the SI unit for radioactivity? You're right. Becquerel is the correct answer.
What nuclear process occurs in the sun?
Nice selection. Fusion is the correct and valid answer. Choose the particle that has no charge. Good job. Your answer neutron works well here. Discovered the electron within the atom. Great job. Thomson is the accurate answer. An isotope of neon-22 has dash neutrons. Strong choice. 12 is the right answer. No definite shape and no definite volume. Well done. Gas is the right choice. Energy is stored in the dash of an atom. On track. Nucleus is the correct answer. In gamma decay, what particle is emitted? Perfect. Energy is the correct choice. How many protons does this isotope have? Well picked. 13 is the correct answer. Which among the following is an element? Smart pick. Silver is the correct choice. What is found in the nucleus of an atom? Sharp thinking. Protons and neutrons is the right choice. What type of charge does a neutron have? Bravo! No charge neutral is the answer. An ion forms when an atom gains or loses. Solid response. Electrons is a valid choice. What is the relative charge of a proton?
You got it? Your choice +1 is right.
What is an alpha particle also known as?
Good thinking. Helium nucleus is the right answer.
What is the positive particle in an atom?
Nicely done. Proton is a solid answer.
A neutral substance would have fetch of dash.
You're right. 7 is the correct answer.
Alpha has a dash protons and dash neutrons.
Great thinking. 2 is the right choice.
How many atoms of hydrogen are in C6? Right choice. 12 is the best answer. The overall charge on a gamma ray is dash. Good job. Your answer 0 works well here. In an endothermic reaction, energy is dash. Nice selection. Absorbed is the correct and valid answer. How many straight edges does a cube have? Well reasoned. 12 is the correct choice. What did Becquerel accidentally discover? Great job. Radiation is the accurate answer. Which of the following stops alpha decay? Clear logic. Your choice paper is sound and 100% true. Protons and dash have roughly equal mass. Correct. Neutrons is the right answer. No change to atomic number or atomic mass.
Excellent. Gamma decay is a brilliant choice.
Which radiation is basically an electron?
Correct response. Beta is the most accurate answer.
What is another way to say helium nucleus?
Valid point. Alpha particle is true.
How many radioactive mass is in the first?
Excellent choice. 10 Gs is the right answer.
Their speed is same as the speed of light?
You chose gamma radiation, and it is correct.
What decay product has a mass number of 4?
Smart move. Alpha is an accurate answer.
What electrical charge does a proton have?
Exactly. +1 makes sense, and it is right choice.
The particles in a nucleus are called dash.
Nice work. You chose nucleon, and it is correct.
Dash starts the fission of a uranium atom.
Right again. 1 neutron is a valid answer.
Which term best describes alpha particles?
Well reasoned. Benign is the correct choice.
Neutron decays into proton and an electron.
Exactly. Beta makes sense, and it is right choice.
What element was named after Enrico Fermi?
Clear logic. Your choice fermium is sound and 100% true.
Can identify the age of fossils using C14.
Well picked. Radioactive dating is the correct answer.
What can alpha particles barely penetrate?
Great job. A piece of paper is the accurate answer.
4 ways body receives body radiation hazards.
Nice work. You chose ingestion, inhale skin external, and it is correct.
Superheated steam is used to turn a dash.
Smart move. Turbine is an accurate answer.
An alpha particle can be easily stopped by.
Correct response. Piece of paper is the most accurate answer.
Carbon dioxide and seawater combine to form.
Right choice.
Carbonic acid is the best answer.
Chemical properties are the way a substance.
Perfect. Reacts is the correct choice.
What type of radiation is the most ionizing? You chose alpha, and it is correct.
How many electrons can the third shell hold?
Sharp thinking. 8 is the right choice. Which solid below is an allotrope of carbon?
Right again. Diamond is a valid answer.
Isotopes always have the same number of dash. Great thinking. Protons is the right choice.
What are the two types of nuclear reactions?
Strong choice. Fusion and fission is the right answer. Mixtures are separated through dash changes.
Nice selection. Physical is the correct and valid answer.
No definite shape, but has a definite volume.
Excellent choice. Liquid is the right answer.
Name the most penetrating type of radiation.
Well done. Gamma is the right choice.
Combustion is when a dash reacts with oxygen. Good thinking. Fuel is the right answer.
What particle is emitted in alpha radiation? Nicely done. Helium nucleus is a solid answer.
What is the most common isotope of potassium?
You're right. Potassium-39 is the correct answer.
The least penetrating radioactive emission is? Excellent. Alpha is a brilliant choice.
Marie Curie was the first woman to win a dash.
On track. Nobel Prize is the correct answer.
Who was the first person to get radiographed? Good job. Your answer, Roentgen wife's hand, works well here.
Which is the most ionizing type of radiation?
Smart pick. Alpha is the correct choice.
Which radiation is stopped by thin aluminium?
Correct. Beta is the right answer.
The halogens have how many valence electrons?
You got it. Your choice 7 is right. The term given to unstable radioactive atoms?
Valid point. Parent is true. Atoms are indivisible.
Solid response. Dalton is a valid choice. What type of bond forms a sea of electrons?
Bravo. Metallic is the answer. The relative mass of a proton-neutron is dash. Excellent. 1 is a brilliant choice. Which type of decay cannot pass through paper?
Right again. Alpha is a valid answer.
Which of the following terms describes starch?
Great job. Macromolecular structure is the accurate answer.
Atoms that are radioactive are said to be dash.
Correct response. Unstable is the most accurate answer.
A use for radioactivity, used in medical field.
Well done. Tracer is the right choice. Which type of radiation do we say paper stops? Nicely done. Alpha is a solid answer.
What part of the atom did Rutherford discover?
Perfect. Nucleus is the correct choice.
What is the unit used to measure radioactivity?
Nice work. You chose becquerel, and it is correct.
A neutralization reaction is a reaction between
Exactly. Acid and a base makes sense and it is right choice. Can penetrate skin and soft tissue for a few mom. Great thinking. Beta radiation is the right choice. The element with the least mass per nucleon is. You chose iron, and it is correct.
Which particle is the nucleus of a helium atom?
Solid response. An alpha particle is a valid choice. What type of radiation do smoke detectors emit? Strong choice. Alpha radiation is the right answer. Which radiation is used to find leaks in pipes? Sharp thinking. Gamma is the right choice. The best example of fusion reactions is in dash. On track. Stars is the correct answer. The process represented in the figure is called. Nice selection. Nuclear fusion is the correct and valid answer. Which of the following is a property of a base? Bravo! Bitter taste is the answer.
How many valence electrons does magnesium have? Good job. Your answer 2 works well here.
The overall charge on an alpha particle is dash. You're right. +2 is the correct answer.
Uranium-235 and uranium-238 are examples of dash.
Smart pick. Isotopes is the correct choice. This causes the mass of the nucleus to increase.
You got it. Your choice adding a neutron is right.
Uranine-123 isotope is used for treatment of dash. Well reasoned. Hyperthyroidism is the correct choice. When light passes through a convex lens, it dash. Correct. Converges or comes together is the right answer.
What is used to date the age of organic objects?
Clear logic. Your choice carbon. Dating is sound and 100% true. In isotopes, what does the top number represent? Valid point. Mass number is true. Which type of decay is stopped by aluminum foil? Well picked. Beta is the correct answer. What is the name for the following compound? Now? Good thinking. Sodium hydroxide is the right answer. Carbon-14 is used to date fossils that came from.
Right choice. Living organisms is the best answer.
When an element loses protons, its dash changes. Smart move. Atomic number is an accurate answer.
The typical size of an atom is approximately dash.
Excellent choice. Wonks 1010 mm is the right answer. Isotopes have the same number of protons and dash. Well reasoned. Electrons is the correct choice. The smallest particle of an element is called an. Nice work. You chose atom and it is correct.
Dash is used in the diagnosis of thyroid disease.
Sharp thinking. Iodine 131 is the right choice.
What is the term for when a nucleus splits apart?
Great job. Nuclear fission is the accurate answer.
Name the instrument used to detect radioactivity.
You chose Geiger tube, and it is correct.
What is responsible for the creation of universe?
Right choice. Dark energy is the best answer. How much radiation is there after 2 half-lives?
Nicely done. 17 Q is a solid answer.
Synthetic elements are produced by the process of?
Excellent choice. Fusion is the right answer.
Which of these is not a type of nuclear radiation?
Exactly. Microwaves make sense, and it is right choice.
Which isotope is used to measure thyroid function?
Great thinking. I-131 is the right choice.
What unit is used to measure weighted atomic mass?
Well picked. A mu is the correct answer.
The most penetrating type of radiation is the dash.
On track, gamma ray is the correct answer.
How many different elements are present in H2COH2?
Smart pick. 3 is the correct choice.
What can overexposure to ionizing radiation cause?
Nice selection. All of the above is the correct and valid answer.
The instrument to monitor the level of a radiation. Right again. Geiger-Müller is a valid answer. Which of these determines the identity of an atom?
You're right. Proton is the correct answer.
Where is most of the mass of an atom concentrated?
Correct response. In the nucleus is the most accurate answer.
Which beam will be diverted to the positive plate?
Good job. Your answer beta ray works well here.
In alpha decay, the atomic number decrease by dash.
Solid response. 2 is a valid choice.
A force that acts on an object without touching it.
Strong choice. Long-range force is the right answer. Which of these is associated with alpha radiation? Valid. 0.452 is true.
When is the rate of radioactive decay the fastest?
You got it. Your choice beginning is right.
The protons and neutrons are held together by dash.
Correct. Nuclear force is the right answer. The radioactive process shown in the figure is dash. Bravo. An alpha decay is the answer.
Which type of radiation is used in smoke detectors?
Smart move. Alpha is an accurate answer. Which subatomic particle has a negative charge?
Perfect. Electron is the correct choice.
Which of the following flat values represents a base?
Well done. 8.1 is the right choice.
Which of the following elements exhibits allotropy?
Excellent. Carbon is a brilliant choice.
Which element below is the most reactive non-metal?
Clear logic. Your choice fluorine is sound and 100% true. In an atom, what is the number of protons equal to?
Good thinking. The number of electrons is the right answer.
Nuclear reactions involve the particles in the dash.
Perfect. Nucleus is the correct choice.
How many electrons are in a neutral atom of sulfur?
Excellent choice. 16 is the right answer. Alpha makes the atomic number decrease by how many? Well reasoned. 2 is the correct choice.
Dash are identical to electrons in mass and charge. Strong choice. Beta particles is the right answer.
The greatest source of background radiation is from?
On track. Radon gas is the correct answer.
What is the main type of bonding in ionic compounds?
Bravo! Ionic bonding is the answer. If a nucleus captures an electron, its atomic number? Great thinking. Decreases by 1 is the right choice. Elements in a dash have similar chemical properties.
Solid response. Group is a valid choice.
What is the relative mass of a neutron and a proton? Well picked. 1 is the correct answer. A new, more stable isotope, called a daughter, produce. You're right. Decay is the correct answer. What machine detects levels of beta in a paper mill? Exactly. Geiger-Müller makes sense, and it is right choice.
Radon gas is most harmful to which part of the body?
Nicely done. Lungs is a solid answer. I am a nonmetal. I am in period 2. I am in group 16 cis-K. You got it. Your choice O is right. Alpha particles are identical to the nucleus of a... Good thinking. Helium atom is the right answer. The following are common types of nuclear radiation. Right again. Beta particles is a valid answer. Which type of radiation has 2 protons and 2 neutrons? Well done. Alpha is the right choice.
Which subatomic particle has a neutral or no charge? Nice work. You chose neutron, and it is correct.
Nuclear power plants use dash to create electricity. Excellent. Fission is a brilliant choice. What form of radiation should a medical tracer emit? Smart move. Gamma is an accurate answer. There are 2 types of nucleons. It is dash and dash. Nice selection. Protons, neutrons is the correct and valid answer. What is the characteristic of the mass of gamma ray? Great job. Has no mass is the accurate answer. Which one of these substances will have a neutral? He. Good job. Your answer, water, works well here. In the sun, hydrogen atoms fuse together to form dash. Correct response. Helium is the most accurate answer. This type of reaction occurs on the sun and in stars. Right choice? Fusion is the best answer. Which process involves the splitting of large nuclei? Nuclear fission is the right answer. Where does most of Earth's internal energy come from? Smart pick. Radioactive decay is the correct choice. There are nuclear reactions occurring the core of the... Sharp thinking. Sun is the right choice. Which radiation has the strongest ionizing potential? Clear logic. Your choice, alpha, is sound and 100% true.
What is the highest energy type of radioactive decay?
You chose gamma radiation, and it is correct. The emission of particles due to decay of nucleus is... Valid point. Radioactivity is true. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format.
You chose contact Narayan Changder, and it is correct.